On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks forgot how to play basketball.
We suck again.
Mavs play the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden, and pretty much everything went wrong for the Mavericks that could go wrong. Is it just a bad game, or is it a symptom of something bigger the Mavericks still need to address? We'll talk about that on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Go to Prize Picks and download the app right now. Use the promo code NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. And remember, Locked On Mavs is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where we're making our way up to 10K. Making our way up there. We're like 800 away. So help us out and go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor, writer at Mavs.com, the New York City Saint, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris? Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
Well, first off, Steph, graphic designer for the Mavs, incredible poster for today's game.
Oh yeah,
New York-based one. She's incredible. But Devin Booker, just real quick, how much can this dude complain about something? This guy, back in the day, complains about double teams and pickup, all this stuff.
We don't double team and pickup.
We all saw the stuff about that, and then, buddy, there are no fans in Toronto, and he is literally complaining about a Raptor.
Like no one in the building.
It's like jumping over a stack of dimes,
a mascot
behind the goal. And anyway, I just saw it again earlier, and I like literally just made a note. I'm like, I just want to complain about Devin Booker's complaining, and it's just dumb.
It was very dumb. You know what else is dumb? The way the Mavericks played against the Knicks in this game, because oh boy, 108-85, the Dallas Mavericks fall to New York Knicks. Their 6-game winning streak ends. It was just overall one of the worst offensive nights of basketball I've seen Luka Doncic and the Mavericks play when Luka Doncic has been a Dallas Maverick.
When I looked at, first off, they had 45 points at halftime, and just how that first half was going, the first quarter was going, you're like, is this going to be a long night? Because, KP obviously didn't play in this game, still out, health and safety protocols and that. We'll see what, the update is with him moving forward after this. This is how Marquise Chris is still on the team and, played in this game and all of that. Shout out to Marquise Chris going for like the absolute poster dunk at the end of that game, whenever it didn't matter at all. But, yeah, I mean, that was just early on. It's like, this is going to be a drag of a game. I just thought the defense was going to be you could tell early on the offense was just off, but I thought the defense was going to be there that, okay, this is going to be like a 92 to 82 type win for the Mavs, and their defense just wasn't there for it.
The defense wasn't there, and some people say, well, the Knicks only scored 108 points. Both these teams play an incredibly slow pace. Jalen Brunson after the game said, we played down to the Knicks pace, which I guess is true because the Mavericks are the 29th ranked team in the NBA in pace this year, and number 30 is the Knicks. So yes, I guess sort of the Mavericks played down to their pace, but both these teams just play at a crawl of a pace. Like there, a lot of times in games, you'll get 100 possessions in a game, right? This game, Dallas had 92 possessions, and the Knicks had 91 possessions. I mean, that's just, you're just playing like normally each team gets 95 possessions in a game. So even for them, this was a really slow pace for a team. They were just playing a lot of half court, not a lot of getting out in transition, not a lot of fast breaks, nothing like that. But the Mavericks defensive rating was 118.7. So for the people that say, well, they held them to 108, no, they were still efficient in the possessions that they had. The Knicks just didn't have a ton of possessions. So it was just all off to me. And it felt like everything that went right in that 6-game winning streak, the rotations, the offensive execution, just straight up hitting threes. The Mavericks in this game, 8 of 37 from 3.
Killed them.
One of them late was there was a couple threes late, so it wasn't even it's even worse than what it says in the box score. But everything that the Mavs were doing right just completely went away from him. Isaac, was this like a symptom of what we saw before the 6-game winning streak, where everything was just like everything just was terrible, and we were like, oh, the Mavericks need to make all these big changes. Are we just back to that now, or was this just an off game for the Mavs?
I want to say it's an off game. I want to see, let's see how many games before you say, hey, that's a habit, type thing. How many times does it have to happen before you're starting to define them with that? I mean, we did it the exact same thing when it was going good too. It's like, hey, they had a couple good defensive games. Like, I'm not ready to say that this team's good at defense. Let's see a little bit more. They go on the stretch and you're like, all right, let's go. 6 games. You proved it. You are a good defensive team right now. So I want to see another game or so before I'm like, oh, did they regress back to where they were before? I'm just not there yet. And I mean, even early on this game, I text you, I'm like, it felt like from the opening tip, they were doubling, Julius Randle.
Yeah.
And I was kind of confused by that, but they were just daring, the Knicks players to hit their shots at that point. But
and Randle, I mean, to the Mavs credit a little bit, he had hit 3 shots in the really early in the first quarter, and he only finished the game 6 of 17. So he only was 3 of 14 or something like that the rest of the game. So it's not like he was the one that was killing them. So maybe some of that did deter them from going back to Randle a lot, going to that well, or it bothered him a little bit. So maybe that did help. But RJ Barrett was good. Mitchell Robinson in the paint was good. Like everybody else seemed to be hitting shots for them.
yeah, but it goes back to what you said a while ago about the 3-point shooting for Dallas. Like if you're going to look at one stat tonight for why Dallas lost this game, is because they couldn't hit a outside shot. They only had one player on the team tonight that hit over 1 3. So they hit multiple threes, and that was Maxey, who went 3 of 8 from 3. I mean, listen to this: Jalen Brunson 1 of 3, Luka 1 of 9, Tim 1 of 7, Reggie 1 of 4. Like, I mean, that's just, do your
Dorian 0 for 4.
Yeah, I mean, Dorian, like you take away Maxey's 3 threes, you take away that Marquise Chris, corner 3 there, and all of a sudden you're looking at that's 4 of the threes right there. That's half the threes that were made in the whole game. So you just, it's almost impossible to win a game like that, especially when your defense is off too.
It just seemed off to me. And I don't think it is. I don't think it was. I think it was just everything the Mavericks went right. Just they didn't have it. It was like they woke up for the game.
Because the off night in New York, or
some people were saying the Mavs did have an off night in New York, and maybe they had some fun the night before, and it just completely threw them off their game. And honestly, it looked like they had some fun the night before, because they just looked off. It just looked like everyone was a step slow. Everybody was, and the pace of the game matched the Mavericks' speed on the perimeter. The way that they stuck with RJ was just, they couldn't really. He was getting separation on everything. He was getting by guys. Randle was getting by guys.
I was impressed by RJ.
Yeah, he had a good game in this one. 32 points, hit 4 of his 7 threes in this one. But one of the numbers that really stands out to me is the starting lineup, plus minus. The Knicks starting lineup and the Knicks starting lineup has not been that great this season, but they are all like plus 20, plus 22, plus 27. And so, and then the bench for the Knicks was all like, -6, -4, plus 0, plus 2. And it's obviously the same for the Mavericks. The Mavericks starting lineup was brutal in this game, but the benches were fine. And so as long as like Randle and RJ were out of the game, the Mavericks were kind of coming back and actually like playing even with them. But it was just that starting lineup that did not seem to match up well for the Mavs in this game.
Yeah, you said it right. You look at the plus minus of this, and it tells a lot of this game. But Brunson only having 14 points in this game. We talk about scoring distribution, especially when KP's out. Your second leading scorer there. Then you almost have to have another guy step up. And when Brunson has 14 and Tim has 13, and you have 3 guys in double figures, like you only have 3 guys in double figures, and number 2 and number 3 in that has 13 or 14 points, like that. You're just putting out a recipe right there. This just isn't going to be very good. And on top of that, it's not like Luka dropped 45 in this game either. He had 21 points, 11 rebounds, but he missed 8 threes in this game, 8 of 23 from the field. There were a couple times I thought he was just forcing a little bit. They were making it a point that, hey, let's get him in the post. We've talked about him in the post so much, especially going back to last year. He was good in the post last year. Numbers are great. That's something you pull out in the playoffs for sure. You pull it out, it's kind of like a card whenever the offense is kind of stalling a little bit. It's like, all right, let's just get Luka in the post. He can hit the right guy. I mean, how many potential assists did Luka have tonight? I feel like he hit so many open.
First quarter they missed. So I mean, Dwight missed even an open alley-oop. Dwight missed to start the game. They missed a bunch of threes to start the game. Maxey finished 3 of 8, but I think he went like 1 of 7 to start, or 1 of 6 to start the game. So it was brutal on that end. They wasted a ton of assists like that. Coming up, let's get into the rest of this game and how the Mavericks fell in this game. The moments that they had to maybe take it back, because it wasn't brutal the entire time. The Mavericks crept back into this game a couple times. So let's talk about what went wrong in those spots, and then any other notes that we have. And then we have to talk about Jalen Brunson, because there's a little Knicks Brunson buzz. Brunson's going to be a free agent this offseason, and there's a connection between the Knicks and the Brunson family that we want to talk about and look out for coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. You've been hearing us tell you about Prize Picks for months. Have you signed up yet? If you haven't, now is the perfect time. For a limited time, Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users, all of our listeners, the Raccoon Squad, the Locked On listeners, anywhere you're listening. For a limited time, go get $50 for free. $50 for free if you're a player and your first Prize Pick entry scores a single point. You got to use the promo code NBA. It's an exclusive offer available only to you guys listening to this right now who use the promo code NBA. So go check it out. Prize Picks, it's daily fantasy made right. You can go use it for the NBA, use it for NFL, use it for college, use it for all kinds of stuff. You can cross, put a bunch of different plays together. You can do Joe Burrow crossed with Luka Doncic. You can do all kinds of things on Prize Picks. They have more props than any other daily fantasy prop operator out there. Go to prizepicks.com today or download it from the App Store. Use the promo code NBA. Get $50 free if your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made right. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into this game a little bit, because I thought that the Mavericks had some chances in this game. They, in the second quarter, it was just a 2-point game at that point, and I thought it was because the bench kind of came back and got a minute. I thought that putting in Josh Green and Reggie Bullock upped the defense a little bit, and the Knicks didn't have any point guards in this game except for Emmanuel Quickley. I mean, Emmanuel Quickley coming off the bench was their only point guard, so I thought there was something the Mavs could do in mucking up that space a little bit. The Knicks ended up just being too good at making tough shots with Randall and RJ. But yeah, I thought that second quarter moment was good. And at halftime, the Mavs are only, just about at the end of the third quarter, they're only down by 5, and the Knicks went on a little bit of a run. It was 11 points at halftime, but that's not a ridiculous lead. The Mavericks just never really picked it up, and the threes never fell for the Mavs.
Yeah, and then the Knicks just pulled away there in the fourth, and it felt like it was just a 20-point, margin there for a bit. When you look at other numbers in this game, it felt like Mitchell Robinson just dominated the paint. He finished the game with 10 boards. Randall had 12. You look at the rebounding matchup in this game, 54-39. You're looking at plus 15 there for the Knicks when it comes to rebounding. That's huge, and I mean that's. When you have Dwight, Maxey, and those guys in there, this is kind of, you almost have to accept that fate that you're going to lose the rebounding battle.
Well, and you miss 46 shots and only get 5 offensive rebounds. I mean, that's just absolutely brutal, losing to that margin. Yeah. I do want to throw some blame at Luka, though. I thought that this was a really, really bad game for Luka. We mentioned all the potential assists that were missed out. He only had 5 assists.
Here we go, blaming Luka.
Should have been more, but I didn't think Luka, his shot selection, especially in the third quarter, early in the third quarter, I wrote down, I was like, Luka on the court right now is actually like a detriment to the Mavericks in that stretch. I thought that his shot selection, I thought that he just kept, he would walk up the ball and he would just pull up. He's like, just please get hot. Just please hit the ball. I felt like he was talking to himself and talking to his jumper. Like, just please go in so I can get hot, and I can get hot at MSG and then turn the tide in this game. And it pulled away from a lot of the team concepts the Mavericks have tried to implement over this last stretch here. And I thought that if we're going to, credit Luka for all the wins the Mavs get, we should credit him for this loss as well a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, just where he's at right now, when he gets these ISOs and he gets the switches on Julius Randle and these guys, and he does the step back, like, I'm not really expecting it to go in right now. And, there's different points in Luka's career when he's at like peak Luka. I'm like sitting there watching it saying, oh, that's buckets like all day.
There's certain moments in this game where I felt like he could have taken another extra bump, like another extra nudge into the paint and taken a different angle closer to the basket, which would have gotten him a better fadeaway. Because he started the game 4 of 4 from 2-point range and 0 for 4 from 3. And I tweeted that out just thinking, well, he should be just attacking inside because Mitchell Robinson can't guard him in there. Randall can't stick with him in there. Like Burks and all them, if they get switched on him, they can't take him in there. And I felt like he settled too much for obviously the threes, the outside jumpers, but then even a farther away turnaround fade jumper instead of trying to like give the extra effort to get closer to the basket. That's what I felt like, at least in this game, a lot.
Well, in a way, though, I kind of don't blame him if he's getting to the paint and he's kicking it out and finding wide open dudes and they're missing. Like, we've obviously not been in that situation before as Luka or one of these guys, but it has to mess with your head, though, right? Like, if you're gonna take the bumps, put the energy to get into the paint, do all these moves, and do these ridiculous passes. Like some of these passes now he's doing in the paint, over his head, backwards,
Yeah, really good.
kind of sideways off his waist, like all this stuff. I'm like, how are you even seeing these dudes first? But then you're hitting these guys wide open in the corner at the top of the key, but then they're just bricking them. So it has to mess with your head some of like, all right, you can almost see his body sometimes where like another player misses and it's the second half and he takes this like kind of deep breath and he, goes trucking down the court again. It's like, all right, I just did all this, banged in the paint to get this open shot and missed again. To where like, I almost don't blame him in a sense of then he's kind of, okay, well now I got to try to force something because it's that whole trust thing. And how, when do you just keep on trusting, keep on passing, keep on banging down low and hitting these open guys and they're missing? Or at what point? And I feel like it's probably quicker for a guy like Luka because he is so dang good that he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to try to take this in my own hands. And that's where all the force stuff happens. And that's when you're not in the best of shape in the world, you're not at like peak shape in the world. That's when it's harder to do something like that.
Yeah. I just thought with his own shots, not even just passing, like he's going for his own shot. If he has somebody, he could have taken another bump and get a little closer to the basket. Maybe he didn't have the energy in this one because he had the night off before and he went off in New York. And
I don't think they did anything like that. Not with COVID stuff.
Did you? I don't think so either. That's why we were kind of joking about that earlier. Did you see any positives in this game? Did anybody stand out to you as like, oh, that was pretty good?
I thought Theo Pinson's energy off the bench as a hype guy.
Theo Pinson is great because he's always arguing every call. I'm like, man, well, I guess he's on the team now, so he feels an ownership with the team. But even before he was like officially a two-way player for the Mavs, he was just up arguing every call. He was up like pointing everything out on the bench. He was always standing. And he was sitting next to Jared Dudley in this game, and I was just like, oh, he's like the Mavs Dudley a little bit, right? Like the energy guy off the bench. He's not as old as Dudley was at the end with the Lakers and even the Suns, but. He felt like that kind of like locker room guy, possibly.
No, of course. I freaking love Theo Pinson.
I thought Brunson's game was pretty good overall. I mean, his stats were good. 14 points, 7 boards, 6 assists. He just needed to be more aggressive. Brunson needed to get a little bit more aggressive in this game, and comes back to one of the problems with Brunson is length. He struggles with length, and you have RJ Barrett and Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel, like a lot of long guys on this team. Even quickly is right. Even quickly is long, and if he struggles with long guys, and when you can't, when you can't take advantage of the things that he does, I thought he could have been a little bit more aggressive in this game and help the Mavs out a little more.
Yeah, I'll keep it there. If we're doing winners for this game, I'll say a winner for this game is Rick Brunson, because I don't think he gets talked about more than when the Mavs play the Knicks, because it's not to the same level as like Tim Hardaway Sr. or like, Stafford Kershaw or anything like that, but or the Seth Curry, Doc Rivers.
Stafford Kershaw.
But Rick Brunson, Knicks tie, this is his son, Jalen, and all that. I'm like, I feel like I've heard that story about 1 million times. So
you know how many games Rick Brunson played for the Knicks? I had to look this up because I was thinking like they always do mention that Rick Brunson played for the Knicks. He played 3 seasons. 3 seasons, 69 games.
Nice.
That's it that he played with it. So what a connection there. What a connection there.
But,
not even like a full season worth of games. But
here's my thing with this game. There are some games that you watch in a season and you just like, whether you agree with it or not, I just look at it and it's like, I just write it off. I'm like, this is where I'm at with this game. Hey, they just didn't have it. Like even some of the best teams in the league, Bucks, Nets, whoever it is, like they'll get beat randomly by 20 by the Kings one night. And you're like, hey, they had one. I'm not saying they're the same type of team as that, but it just felt like an off night from the beginning, offense and defense. And I want to see what they look like in this next game.
The Utah Jazz just got beat by the Detroit Pistons, right? Like sometimes games happen. Sometimes weird games happen. And we'll see as the season plays out a little more if this is a weird game or if this was back to where the Mavs were at the beginning of the season. Because it felt like a game in October for the Mavs is what it felt like this year. But we'll see about that. All right, let me just do one more thing before we move on, and that's our 5-star Apple Podcast review question. We're getting a bunch of questions from you guys. Appreciate it. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a question. We will answer it, including this one. New York Knicks related. Okay, this is from Rustin. In your mind, does snagging Frankie Smokes make the Porzingis trade a little bit better? It's essentially like the Mavs picked Frank Ntilikina in 2017 and didn't have to make him part of the package to get KP because Dennis Smith Jr. was the pick after Frank Ntilikina, and so since they sent Dennis Smith Jr. in the trade, but they got Frank Ntilikina, who was the guy drafted above him. So, Isaac, can you follow that logic, and does it make the trade a little better now that they have Ntilikina?
No, that's a negative. No, and it has nothing to do with the trade. I will always stand by that trade. I thought it was a great trade. It was a great trade in the moment. You do the trade 100 times out of 100. Like we could go all day about Dennis and Dallas, his future, his relationship with the organization, all that stuff, and
the contract that they gave Porzingis, all that. We can talk about all that.
Yeah, but like that trade, like that was already a win. So I don't really need to find another thing out there. Like, does Frank make it? And I think that's kind of like a pretty far stretch there to do the, hey, well, Frank joined, then that makes it better.
Just a little bit of a stretch. All right, coming up, let's get into the Jalen Brunson Knicks connection. We'll talk about the rumor that came out and what it means. Was it really a rumor? What's the Frankie Smokes behind all the fire with Jalen Brunson and the Knicks? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about betonline.ag. It's the fastest and easiest way to put down some money on sports. You can find NBA games, you can find NFL playoff games. There's all kinds of stuff going on all the time. You could bet.
What's that Bengals game?
Thursday. Well, let's see. Let's go back to.
Bengals have to be
excellent podcasting. Bengals 5-point favorite now against the
So
Raiders. it was 5.5, and now it's down to 5.
Me.
So they're feeling the Raiders now a little bit more. So if you want to bet on the Bengals, you want to bet on the Ravens. Where's the Ravens line? Not seeing that.
I'm gonna hit you with a Built Bar.
Bet on the Cowboys. They're a 3-point favorite against the 49ers. Put it all down on betonline.ag. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Bet online, anything that you want to bet on. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris. So we've been talking about the Knicks and the Mavericks. Obviously, the Mavericks played in MSG. Jalen Brunson has some ties to that organization, and Ian Begley came out with a report recently. And I'm not sure this is a report, but it was poised as a report on Twitter. And so this is where you can kind of read some of these stories and then see it talked about on Twitter. You have to go back to the actual source of it. This was from Ian Begley. He's obviously, Knicks beat writer and all that kind of stuff. On another note, this is just my opinion, but I won't rule out the possibility of the Knicks pursuing Jalen Brunson until the day Brunson announces his retirement. Brunson is a 2022 unrestricted free agent. He is young, skilled lead guard. Brunson has plenty of ties to this Knicks organization. Brunson's father, Rick Brunson, was one of the team president's first NBA clients, Leon Rose. Leon Rose also represented Jalen Brunson. Rick Brunson, a former Knick, has coached with Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau. So there's all kinds of different connections between Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. Plus, we just mentioned the Knicks didn't play with a point guard tonight because they tried with Kemba Walker and it didn't really work. And they got Emmanuel quickly, and he's just really not ready at this point. Derrick Rose is out, all that kind of stuff with Knicks point guards. What do we think about the connection between Jalen Brunson, and the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that rumor started I feel like the first thing we saw was back last year, and I think it was Begley who reported that. It sounds like this one was more just him speculating, having fun with it type thing. but that this has been a legit rumor in the past, like going back, like a year ago. So that the Knicks were at least monitoring the situation. They were fans of Brunson. This is why I've thrown out the Knicks whenever we, talk about anything with the offseason of Brunson's contract. If there's a team out there that, creates the space, has a space, and says, Jalen Brunson, we think you're really good. We want to make you our starting point guard. We want you to have the ball in your hands all the time. And if it's in New York for Leon Rose, for a situation like that, Rick Brunson, the story we've talked about, we've always heard, that's the type of situation that I'm scared about, right? If they're coming offering around the same as what Dallas is, and it's a starting point guard spot, and it's the connections, you can't tell me if you're a Mavericks fan, they're like, yeah, but him and Luka are friends. Well, that's cool, but that's still that scares me some if you plan on keeping JB in Dallas. So yeah, I think they are a team that I'm watching in regards to Brunson, whether it's free agency or if there's something spicy at the deadline that they try to steal Brunson away.
The good thing is that this team has $114 million signed up. The Knicks do next season, and they also will have to probably pay RJ in that as well. He's going into it this next season with a non-guaranteed. So, they've got some things to figure out, some cap stuff. They don't have cap space to spend on a guy like Jalen Brunson to come in and just offer this monster thing. So it would have to be some sort of sign and trade or some kind of other machination of the cap for them to get Jalen Brunson. But it is something to monitor. It is pretty interesting. We mentioned Rick Brunson played 69 games for the Knicks in 3 seasons.
Nice.
Rick Brunson bounced around a ton. He played for the Blazers, the Clippers, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Rockets, the Celtics, the Seattle Supersonics, and the Raptors. He played for so many teams in his career.
But even if you look at the Knicks, and let's just say that they are pretty active at the deadline, I'll be really curious on what they try to go after, because even looking at their assets, they got some first, they got the 2 Dallas first that, in the KP trade that they can use in a deal.
No, they already used one of them.
That's true. Yeah,
Quentin Grimes. Yeah,
Grimes, get your shots up, bro.
He did.
But they still got one of those picks. As far as their young pieces, are they really going to give up RJ? They're only going to give up RJ probably, for some star type of player. But I don't know what the Randall situation looks like for them. But outside of that, it's you're looking at pretty much, expiring contracts next season. Derrick Rose has, is basically expiring next season. Alex Burks is basically expiring next season. They have these non-guaranteed, numbers on those third year. Yeah, I thought Nerlens had a couple blocks tonight were really nice. I'm just really curious, where this team's going. And even if they did call, on before the trade deadline, I was like, hey, we want Jalen Brunson. I just don't even know what realistically that they would have that I would be interested in. I know the Mitchell Robinson piece, he would fit in Dallas, but I'm sorry. I'm personally not here for a Brunson from Mitch Robinson swap. I just think Brunson's a better player. I think he means more to Dallas as that secondary creator and playmaker.
Yeah, you start going through it and you're like, well, if the Knicks were so interested in Brunson, wanted to trade for him, the top 2 assets that they have are Randall and RJ Barrett. They're not sending them to the Mavs for Jalen Brunson. Rich Robinson and Brunson make just about the same amount of money, so you could sort of try to throw something together. And so then you're like, well, what if they did a Powell and Brunson for Mitchell Robinson plus another salary? Okay, well, the other ones are Derrick Rose, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kemba. And that's the rest of their contracts. Those are the only players, and none of those interest you enough to try and make a deal if you're the Mavericks. So, yeah, I don't think this is anything that could happen between Brunson and the Knicks until the offseason. And even then, it would be some kind of sign and trade, and who knows where it would go then.
Yeah, I'm still keeping my eye on Kemba, though. I'll be really curious on. I know he was out this game, his knee stuff and all of that, but
yeah,
there's still that. Well, I'm just saying there's still that Dallas connection. If Dallas swung for a bigger trade, let's say before the deadline, they swing for a big time trade, and it's
Ben Simmons, whose number 1 option and number 1 target is to go to Dallas, according to that random person I've never heard of today.
You can't say that on a pod, then somebody's gonna quote you or something.
It was there. You can find the tweet. Go find the tweet. Somebody tweeted and said
I love random people on Twitter. But no, let's say Dallas does swing for some bigger trade, and it did require Brunson and a couple, and they basically cleared up an offensive spot off the bench for like a vet guard, because we know Kid likes his vet guards, right? Like we've seen this, but the Brandon Knights and Trey Burke is on the bench still, and Isaiah Thomas, they gave him a shot and all this stuff. Like Kemba's still a guy that I'm like keeping tabs on. The agent, the past history of Dallas been interested in him, very, very close to getting him back before the Boston deal. That if it's like, hey, if Dallas really shakes the roster and stuff, and then they turn around like right at the buzzer and land Kemba to come off the bench or something, I wouldn't be like shocked by that. And because he is, he makes what, $8 million this year. I don't know what his spot is in that rotation when he's fully healthy and all that. And I wouldn't mind Kemba coming off the bench for a team for $8 million.
Yeah. And also if like the Dragic thing still doesn't work out, which still feels like we're waiting on that, but if that never turns into anything, then yeah, that's another direction you could go if you're the Mavericks.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously I wouldn't do both of those together, but it is that thing of like, okay, if they do have this like kind of vet guard spot off the bench, they want a veteran point guard. If Dragic doesn't work, oh, what about Kemba? What's some other vet point guards out there we could go for?
Yep, there you go. That's how the Mavericks lost this game against the Knicks. We got another game coming up. The Mavericks have now played 41 games. So tomorrow we're going to do a whole breakdown of the Mavs' first 41 games of the season. We are going to break down everything that we've seen so far, what we think is real, what we think is fake. Go through all the numbers tomorrow. So we'll catch you up on that. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. Now go make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q and Lee Sterling. Go check it out. If you want to put money down on betonline.ag, the best place to start is Locked On Bets. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!